Building a better Bay Area. Moving forward, finding solutions. This is ABC 7 News.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Z. You're watching Getting Answers live on ABC 7, Hulu Live, and wherever you stream. We ask experts your questions every day at 3 to get answers for you in real time. Today, we have a new quiz devised by Kaiser Permanente to help parents assess whether their teens may be at risk for drugs and alcohol. It's a timely conversation as the pandemic has pushed many young people into a mental health crisis. Also, as we celebrate Black History Month, we'll introduce you to an artist whose latest public art in San Francisco will have you walking down Market Street while learning Black history. But first, the California Supreme Court is right now weighing what to do about UC Berkeley's appeal of a lower court decision that may mean one of the top most competitive public universities in the nation may have to accept 5,000 fewer students for this coming school year. Last week, a judge froze Cal's enrollment after a neighborhood nonprofit sued over the university's expansion plan. Well, yesterday, State Senator Scott Wiener of San Francisco stepped in with a bill that he hopes may be part of the answer. Joining us now today to discuss this is Senator Scott Wiener and Dan Mogulof, UC Berkeley's Assistant Vice Chancellor for Communications and Public Affairs. Dan and Senator Wiener, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dan, I'll start with you. Let's explain the situation a little bit. A nonprofit, Save Berkeley's Neighborhood, sued Cal over its expansion plan, saying its environmental impact studies were insufficient, and a lower court sided with that group, and the State Court of Appeals let it stand. So, explain how that led to Cal sending out that email last week warning applicants that you may have to reject way more applicants than you wanted to. Connect these dots for us.
Yeah, first I should say that the initial suit wasn't about stopping expansion. It was actually to stop construction of new housing. And that may become important to us as we continue the conversation today. Anyway, as part of that, our environmental impact report, we had provided information about the environmental impacts of our student population. And that was contested in the litigation, and the judge ruled that we needed to freeze enrollment until we could conduct the sort of environmental analysis of student enrollment in a way that had never been done before in the state of California. It was unprecedented. The judge, in fact, asked the university to treat students almost as if they were pollution or a building construction project. And we came to the conclusion that meeting his demands and meeting the demands of this unprecedented order would be impossible, and we appealed. We lost that appeal. We appealed, in other words, the freeze on enrollment. The full appeal won't be heard till next summer. And so the judge's order, as of right now, stands. Here's the problem. The judge froze enrollment at 2020 levels. 2020 was a really odd year, as for one of the first times in history, our enrollment actually shrunk due to the pandemic. Students who had been enrolled for the 2020 year said, I don't want to come back to school, and they didn't matriculate. They all came back in 2021. Therefore, to go backwards to 2020, and that was some 2,700 students, close to 3,000 students who said, we're not coming back. They all came back. So in order to come down to that 2020 level, we would have to reduce enrollment next year by some 3,000 students, meaning we would offer admissions to about 5,000 students less, because obviously not every student we offer admission to says yes. That is a tragic consequence for young people who've worked so hard to get into UC Berkeley. And we're doing everything in our power, including, as you mentioned, an appeal to the Supreme Court, to see if we can put this decision in abeyance until the appeals court can hear our full petition.
All right, real quickly, what would that mean to the acceptance rate? Because that has all the high school seniors kind of panicking right now. It was already, 13% or something, or 16%?
Yeah, and given that we had another remarkable increase in admissions this year, it would probably take our acceptance rate into the single digits.
Okay, first, let me just say I never would have gotten in. That was a long time ago, and the numbers were a lot higher. Okay, Senator Wiener, let me ask you. Look, I know, you've been an advocate for streamlining the process to make building housing in general easier in California. And now you want to bring this to the university level. Talk about SB 886 that you introduced. What would it do?
Sure. And if I just may, if I may, I'd like to just start by saying that what the judge did in this case is completely outrageous. The fact that a judge would step in and try to decide as a matter of environmental law how many California children can be admitted to public universities, that's none of his business, to be honest. That is a matter for the UC regents, for the governor, and for the legislature, because the UC and CSU and our other public universities are at the heart of our economy and who we are as a state. And for this judge to use an environmental law to cap UC enrollment, it is outrageous. Now, with that, what we're proposing with this new bill that we've introduced is to help relieve the UC and CSU and community colleges of this kind of meddling by NIMBYs and by judges in terms of using environmental laws to try to stop student housing and faculty housing from being built. We know that we have a massive shortage of student housing in California. 19% of community college students in California are homeless. 10% of CSU students are homeless. 5% of UC students are homeless. The ones that aren't, many are living in very overcrowded situations. We need more student housing and for our faculty. And CEQA is being used as a bludgeon to try to stop this kind of housing. And we need to just get it built. It is environmentally sustainable to have more students and faculty living on campus where they can walk to school or walk to work instead of having to drive a long distance. That's why we're doing this.
By the way, UC Berkeley is not the only university that is undergoing a tremendous housing crunch, right? I mean, it's a very acute case.
It's all over the state. It's every UC campus. It is every CSU campus, and it's community colleges. It's all of these public universities and colleges where these kids are suffering. We want, these colleges and universities are public higher education system in California. It's at the heart of our economy. This is also the pathway to the middle class for so many low-income, working class, first-generation California families. And we are making it so hard for them because there's nowhere for these kids to live. And that's what we want to get done here.
Dan, let me just ask you, is the expansion of housing, additional housing development, is that to accommodate more of the existing students, or is that to pave the way so that you can bring on thousands more students?
Yeah, so UC Berkeley, at least, is not a growth campus. We don't anticipate by growing more than about 1% a year for the next 15 years. That's just a few hundred students. We have an urgent housing emergency. We have a very expensive comprehensive housing initiative. We're trying to build more student housing. And ironically, some of the same people behind this particular lawsuit have sued us on every single housing project we've tried to launch in the city of Berkeley. We desperately want to provide our students with the housing they've earned and they deserve, but we can't do that, as the senator said, if we have judges and local groups who are fighting us every step of the way. And again, this is just to keep the student body where it currently is and to provide the current student body at its current level with the kind of housing that any kid needs so they can thrive at college.
But what do you say to those who say, look, the university is maxed out in a built-out city, and that you don't really need more students in the sense that, it can be hard to get classes at Cal, it can be hard to graduate in 4 years, that do you need or can you handle more students?
So, Kristen, let me say again, we don't want more students. We are not slated to take on more students. We just want to maintain our current size, our current students, and provide them with housing. We have university-owned property that is empty and undeveloped in the city of Berkeley that we would love to build housing on for the students we currently have. We can't do that if we have judges and local organizations fighting us every step of the way.
So I know Governor Newsom and the city of Berkeley have both sent letters supporting the university, but what happens if no court action is taken before admissions decisions need to go out? End of next month, I think, right?
Yeah. So if the decision stands, we're going to look to partner and work with our friends and colleagues and our elected representatives in Sacramento, such as Senator Wiener, We're going to explore the possibility of a legislative remedy. And also in the meantime, we're not sitting on our hands. We're not complacent at the university. We are looking at every and any possible tactic that would allow us to lawfully mitigate this decision if it comes to pass that we need to wait until the summer to hear the appeal. So if it stands, we're not just going to sit back. We're going to continue to do everything we can to uphold our responsibility and our commitment to the people of California to enroll as many students as possible.
All right. I mean, could that mean creative solutions by, somehow not bringing those students you accept onto campus right away, but you don't reject them? Maybe you find some other place for them, whether it's another program somewhere. Is that a possibility?
That and every other conceivable and legal option is on the table and being explored as we speak.
Okay. Senator Wiener, I do understand there's a budget consideration here, too, which is if the university has fewer students, it also takes in less in terms of tuition and fees. That could be, $59 million or something like that. On the legislative end, what can you do to support the university if it were to lose a tremendous amount of money like that?
Well, we've chronically underfunded UC and CSU and community colleges over the years. And so we need to do more, and we have been doing more in the last few years to support these amazing higher education systems. But let's be clear, when we put more money into the UC, it should be because we decided as a policy matter we want to put more money in, not because some judge abuses an environmental law to put a cap on UC Berkeley enrollment, and then we have to backfill that money, not as a policy matter, but because a judge decided to distort an environmental law and micromanage how many students UC Berkeley can admit every year. So we are counting on the California Supreme Court to hit the pause button here so that we don't have this train wreck that is heading, I don't want to say our way, it's our way as Californians, but heading towards so many families and young people in California. It's really outrageous. And I don't say that lightly. I was a lawyer for 15 years before I entered elected life. I have immense respect for the judiciary. This judge just overstepped and got it wrong.
All right, Senator Scott Wiener and Dan Mogulof, thank you both so very much for your time today. Please do keep us posted.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Should let you know that we have invited Save Berkeley's Neighborhoods to join our show. We do expect them to appear tomorrow. All right, when we come back, another important conversation about teen drug and alcohol abuse. And a new quiz is out there to help you assess your child's risk. Be right back. All right, everybody, thanks for joining us today. Hope you learned something from that conversation, a very timely topic. We'll be right back with more. All right. Now to the online quiz to help you determine the factors that can put your teen at higher risk for developing a substance abuse disorder. There are 19 questions in this quiz. They cover everything from alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, and many other drugs. Dr. Stacy Sterling led the team that developed this online tool. She's a research scientist at Kaiser Permanente and is co-director of its Center for Addiction and Mental Health Research. Dr. Sterling, welcome to the show. Why did your team devise this quiz?
Well, we really wanted to develop tools to give parents and pediatricians evidence-based information to help understand the factors that raise a child's risk of developing an alcohol or drug problem as a teenager, so that they can be proactive about preventing problems before they develop.
Okay, how pervasive is teen drug or alcohol abuse?
Well, luckily it has gone down over the past few decades, but, it's still probably about 5% of the adolescent population will develop an alcohol or drug problem. And teenagers are especially vulnerable to the health and mental health problems related to substance use, things like suicide and motor vehicle accidents and sexual assault. So, and it's really hard for pediatricians and parents to know what might make a child vulnerable to developing a serious addiction problem.
Any evidence that the pandemic has made the problem worse?
We're still learning about what's going on. So we have seen some evidence that there's been an uptick in things like binge drinking and cannabis use, but there's some conflicting information. So that evidence is really still coming in.
Okay, I know your team has identified some strong predictors, if you will, of substance abuse during adolescence. Can you talk about those main risk factors?
Sure. Some of the biggest ones are things like trauma and stress-related disorders, oppositional defiant disorder, ADHD as a predictor, conduct disorders, and then some things that might not be as intuitive, like headache and, something that you might not think of. So self-harm is also a very strong predictor of developing a substance use disorder.
All right, let's take the last part of the quiz together. As we mentioned, there are 19 questions. We won't walk our viewers through all of that, but here are some. So let's go ahead and pull that up so people can see what they'll encounter. Okay, so here's, a question. As far as I know, my teenage child uses tobacco or nicotine. Let's say you click never. Okay, so next question. As far as I know, my teen uses alcohol. Let's say used to. All right, used to. They used to. Let's go with used to. Oh, okay. As far as I know, my teenage child uses marijuana. Let's go with often. All right, so we'll answer that. And then, as far as I know, my teen child uses drugs like cocaine, methamphetamine. Okay, let's say never. All right, so let's finish this up. If you believe your child is using substances, how old do you think your child was when they started using? Let's say 12 to 14. Okay, so that's the last question, and then we see our results. And all right, so what is this? You've identified some risk factors. What does this tell us here, this report card, if you will?
Well, some of those are the items that you chose were ones asking about actual use of substances. But some of the other questions are things like, does your child have any of these mental health conditions, and some of the things that we identified as predictors, or are there family, is there someone in the family who has a substance use disorder? Because that's also something that we identified as a predictor. And so at the end, you get a score, and it can tell you if your child might be at heightened risk. And then you can take that information and you can talk to your child's pediatrician. There are lots of prevention activities that you can, engage in with your child. So, it's really about prevention and about arming parents and pediatricians and their patients with information to be proactive.
Okay, so this information is great, Dr. Sterling. Lastly, before we go, where do folks go to take the quiz?
You can go to the Partnership to End Addiction, and they are the organization that we partnered with to develop this tool. And if you search for risk assessment, that quiz will come up, and parents, it's free for anyone to use. And I think it's a helpful tool for getting some more information.
Yeah, and there are resources there for help too. Dr. Stacy Sterling, research scientist at Kaiser Permanente, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Coming up next, we'll explore the origins of a gallery of posters that has shown up along Market Street in San Francisco, depicting Black pioneers. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. Hope you enjoyed that interview segment and found it useful. We have one more coming your way, so be right back. If you take a ride down Market Street in San Francisco, you'll notice a gallery of posters celebrating the city's Black pioneers. Some you may have heard of, but others you may learn about for the very first time. Oakland artist Fred Nolan created the series, and he's joining us now with more. Hi, Fred. Nice to meet you.
Good to meet you, too.
All right, I've got to get out there to Market Street because I've seen some of the photos, and you made this a really entertaining way to learn about Black history. How did this series come about?
I had a friend, Justin, who did a similar series for the San Francisco Art Council last year. He's also a cartoonist, and he did his on the gay liberation movement or the gay rights movement.
Yeah.
And it inspired me to do mine.
All right, so let's show folks, some of the pictures of some of these amazing posters. And I love your style, by the way.
Thank you.
Comic, how would you describe the style, first of all?
It's a comic. Yeah, it's a cartoon style.
Yeah, I love it. So talk about who we're seeing here, because you highlighted some Black pioneers. Who are these folks that you chose?
I chose, well, there was Alexander Leadsdorf. There was Mary Ellen Pleasant. I did Sid Laprodi, Sylvester Stewart from Sly and the Family Stone, another Sylvester, the disco pioneer.
Yeah, and who's Mary Ellen Pleasant? What was her impact?
Mary Ellen Pleasant. Yeah, she is the mother of civil rights in California. She actually is the reason why the trolleys were desegregated. And she had just an amazing life. She was one of the wealthiest people in San Francisco at the time, which is an accomplishment for anyone, but certainly for a Black woman in the 1800s.
Yeah.
Just an amazing person.
Yeah. You also have William Cobb, right, and Josephine Cole. They are educators.
Yes.
And there's a personal reason for that too, right? Personal story there.
That's correct. My mother actually was a teacher for many years. And I've also had my life very affected and influenced by teachers. So they're close to my heart.
They are certainly unsung heroes for sure. Talk about how you went about creating each of those pieces.
Well, there was a great deal of research that went into it. Just you see one page, and each page probably has a minimum of like 50 hours of research and reams of paper behind it to boil it down to that. What I did was just do a search on Black history in San Francisco and came up with a few people that were more noteworthy, like more well-known. And I decided that I wanted to try to kind of mix that up with people who were less well-known, because I'd never heard of Leadsdorf or Pleasant, and they were just amazing people. So yeah, that's the route that I took.
All right, by the way, I love the Summer of Love one.
Thank you.
I don't know if we can show that one again, but I just love it. What surprised you most, I guess, when you were working on the project?
What surprised me most was just how deep the roots for Black people go. Some of the stuff that I didn't even feature goes back to the World War II era San Francisco that saw a large influx of Black people to the Bayview and to different neighborhoods to help with the war effort. Hearing that Alexander Leadsdorf, one of the founding fathers of the city, was a Black person was amazing and completely unexpected.
Well, I mean, we don't often learn about that in school, right? So through your art, you're able to highlight the impact of some of these Black pioneers on the city of San Francisco. Okay, so here's the big question. Where can we see your amazing posters? I know it's down Market Street, but like, is it bus stops? Is it side of buildings? And which section of Market?
It's on Market Street starting at Stewart, like right down in the Embarcadero. And it's on the shelters for the Muni stops going up about, I want to say, 6 blocks, and there are 37 different installations, 7 posters repeating.
Wow, that must have taken you quite a while to do 37.
I have 7 posters repeating, so it actually
7 repeating.
Yeah.
Sorry, cut out there.
Yeah, I would still be working now if it was 30.
I was gonna say, I do invite folks to check out your work. I know you have the website frednolan.com. Where else can they see your work? Other work?
They can see me on Instagram at Fred Noland. That's where I that's where I have more up-to-date artwork.
All right, well, thank you, Fred. Just looking at your stuff makes me so happy. I don't know why, it just has that effect. So congratulations.
Thank you, I'm happy to hear that.
Thanks for all that you do. And folks, take that ride down Market Street right now to see Fred Nolan's posters. All right, we'll be right back. All right, folks, hope you enjoy meeting Fred Nolan. We'll be right back after a short break. Thanks so much for joining us on this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every weekday at 3 on air and on live stream answering your questions. Bye-bye.